find themselves when they move, when they travel, when they make new friends, when they go on new ventures. People literally go on journeys to discover themselves. The journey of finding yourself, of discovering who you really are, is this well-known journey. We're all familiar with it. But what if your true self isn't in hiding, waiting its time to show itself? What if your true self was something that you needed to go out and you needed to create? To have the belief that your true, authentic self is gonna come out when you go on that trip, when you move countries, that it's gonna show up based on the random trips you take or the random experiences that you have, is what Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is this idea that you have this one fixed way that you show up. You're this unchangeable, ungrowable self. Inside Professor Herminia Ibarra actually talks about how behaving in ways that don't feel authentic is a necessary part of growth for leaders. Being a leader is rarely gonna feel authentic. Growth is rarely gonna feel authentic. If you always prioritize being your most authentic self, doing things that feel aligned, you can slip into a fixed person. Instead, think more in terms of your best self. Your best self is this person that you go out and you create. Instead of asking yourself, who really am I? Who is my most authentic self? Start asking yourself, who do I want to become? How can I become my best self? Then find the most enjoyable ways to become that person. In this video, I want to talk about 4 ways that you can start becoming your best self. Accept yourself, create change. Tara Brach writes in her book, Radical Self-Acceptance, amazingly, time after time, people discover that letting things be allows them to change. So Dr. Marsha Linehan developed radical acceptance when she was managing clients who had borderline personality disorder, who had trouble managing their emotions. Their emotions just felt really, really big. And radical acceptance is just the act of accepting what's happening around you and accepting intensely who you are. When I first discovered self-acceptance, I was like, but I want to change. Why would I accept myself? Accepting seems like giving up. But if we aren't accepting ourselves, usually we're on the other end where we're judging ourselves, which is just another way of like clinging on to behavior that we don't want to cling on to. In the book, The Untethered Soul, the author wrote, if you are resisting something, you are feeding it. Any energy that you fight, you are feeding. If you are pushing something away, you are inviting it to stay. So we fight self-acceptance by lying to ourselves. I don't think I actually struggle with impulsive spending. Like, it's not a real issue for me like it is for some people. I could definitely stop, but I just spend a little more than I should sometimes. We fight self-acceptance by judging ourselves. I genuinely think something might be wrong with me. Like, why am I so impulsive? I did not need $200 worth of books. That is going to mess up my entire bloody week. And we fight self-acceptance by complaining, but then never moving forward from complaining. I mean, yeah, I'm an impulsive spender, but my parents literally raised me to spend. I was never taught to budget. Why were other people taught these skills, but I wasn't? We can only change when we create awareness and acceptance. Look, I'm not great with impulse control when it comes to money, and that's because of a lot of experiences in my childhood with money. I can't really change those events, but I can focus on what I want to do differently. The author of The Body Keeps the Score, who, by the way, does have allegations around creating a hostile work environment that you might want to look into before reading his stuff, wrote in his book, neuroscience research shows that the only way we can change the way we feel is by becoming aware of our inner experiences and learning to befriend what is going on inside ourselves. Radical acceptance is a mental habit that you need to practice, and you can start by meditating. Meditate on things that you struggle to accept about yourself. Tell them that you accept them fully and wholly. Send them feelings of self-acceptance, send them feelings of love, and then ask them how they might want to change. Whether there's ways that they could show up that might be more helpful. Hold your identity loosely. So I was scrolling through TikTok the other day, and this girl made this TikTok saying, I want to be a person that wears hats, but I feel dumb when I wear hats, and I feel like when I wear hats, everyone around me is thinking, this isn't a person that wears hats. Everyone knows that I'm not a hat girl. It sounds like a joke, but it's also not. I used to be someone who didn't wear hats because I felt like I wasn't a hat girl. I also didn't wear sunglasses because I was like, I'm not a sunglass gal. And obviously, this phenomenon isn't just limited to accessories. It extends to activities, it extends to behaviors. For example, I couldn't possibly work in a co-working space. I'm an introvert, I'm a homebody. Or I couldn't journal on my feelings because I'm really type A. I'm more of a thinker. A few years ago, I remember thinking, I couldn't possibly learn a language. I'm not a language learning kind of person. I never was in high school. It's too difficult, too hard basket. I'm not that girl. And then I went to Europe and I was like, God, it'd be really nice to learn Spanish. Cut to now. I've just started learning Spanish using Lingoda. Thank you to Lingoda for sponsoring this video. Learning a new language not only has gotten me out of my comfort zone, it's put me in a new environment, it's gotten me learning, and I'm also just really excited about the idea of learning Spanish. I'm about to go into my very first Lingoda Spanish class. We're starting from the very basics. I feel a little uncomfortable. I feel a little nervous. I think that even speaking in front of a group in English isn't my favorite thing to do, but that's why I feel like it's gonna be really good for me. Not only do I want to learn Spanish, I also just want to be uncomfortable. This is my first Lingoda group class, so I'm gonna learn how to greet people in the classroom and say goodbye. I was definitely the worst person in the class. Everyone else, they knew everything. Next time I'm gonna pre-study. I feel like I really learned a lot in that class. It put me out of my comfort zone a lot. I'm sweating, but very good for me, very off-brand. So these lessons are taking place 24/7 over Zoom, so you can hop into the list of classes and book a time that works for you. All you need is an internet connection and 60 minutes to fit a language class in at any time of day. So today I have another Spanish lesson on Lingoda. Even though on Lingoda it's pretty inexpensive, just having access to someone who is like a fluent Spanish speaker, it's such a valuable thing. So I kind of want to have a bit of pre-knowledge so I'm getting the most out of the class, and hopefully this time, maybe I won't be the worst in the class. We'll see how I go. Wait for it, you guys. I'm gonna be a Spanish speaking queen. It's gonna be incredible. So you can open the annotated lesson material before you enter the class, so if you want to feel super prepared, you can. You can also check out the words and phrases of the lesson, grammar tips. A little bit of prep goes a long bloody way. I was so much better in that class. I felt so much more confident. I'm doing group classes. You can do individual one-on-one classes if that's more comfy for you, but with the group classes it's only 5 people. It's max 5 people. So Lingoda has a challenge going on right now that'll take you from small talk to real conversations in a language of your choice in 2 months. So it's an intensive language learning challenge, and you have 2 options. Either you take 15 classes per month over 2 months, and if you attend all of the classes you get 50% cash back, or you take 30 classes per month over 2 months, and if you attend all of those classes you're gonna get 100% of the cash back if you attend all of the classes. If you are in a mindset where you're like, yes, I want to become my best self, I want to learn a new language, I want to be that person, do the Lingoda language sprint. Check out the link below if you want more information on the challenge, and you can also use my code for €20 or $25 off of your deposit. When it comes to our identity, we create these boxes for ourselves. Not a foreign language person, not a hat wearer, not a beach person, or even uglier boxes like not a feelings person, not much of a people person. Then we base our whole lives around those boxes that we've created. And when we're hanging on, latching on to these limited, worn out boxes, we are stunting our growth. To become your best self, you need to hold onto those boxes very, very loosely. You need to be extremely ready and willing to replace them with new and better boxes. One way that I've been learning to loosen my grip on those identity boxes is by going off-brand. Doing things that aren't normal, things that your friends would find weird. If you are anti-exercise, sign up for a boot camp. If you're a beach-only kind of person, go to the bush. If you're a hotel person, go camping. My most recent off-brand project was 5 days of ocean dips. Anyone who knows me knows that I love the sun. I have a tattoo. So whenever I went to the beach, I'd be like, ugh, cold water is very cold. I'm just gonna lie in the sun. And I got to this point where being anti-cold water just became part of my identity. It took 3 days to change my mind. As it turns out, a little ocean dip is great. It's a great time. It's very refreshing, super resetting, super lovely when you're in the sun. Little off-brand projects like this reinforce the idea that your identity is flexible. You can go from an anti-cold water person to a person that really loves an ocean dip. You can go from a non-hat wearer to a hat wearer. Just test it out, try it on for a few days, see how you go. Create a clear idea of who you want to be. Stephen Covey wrote, "If the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster." Usually our ladder is just leaning against the most convenient wall. We grow based on what's around us, based on what we passively consume, based on who we happen to be surrounded by. And if those people force growth or those environments force growth, amazing, you're gonna grow. If they don't, you're not. And you just end up becoming the most convenient version of yourself. In a study of advanced musicians and less advanced musicians, they found that the advanced musicians would have these really detailed mental representations of how their music should sound. So they used these mental representations to help them make adjustments as they played. The less advanced musicians would be a lot less clear on what their final pieces should sound like. They relied a lot more on the feedback from their tutors and external guidance. Most people don't have a clear mental representation of their future self. To be clear, knowing who you want to be doesn't mean that you need to have a 5-year plan. No one truly needs a 5-year plan. You just need to decide, how do you want to show up in your life? Is it the same way that you're showing up now or not? You might want to show up as a confident, graceful person. You might want to show up as a bubbly, fun person. But if you don't have a clear idea of how you want to show up, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get to that place. A starting point for creating a mental representation of who you want to become is creating a future self map. A good way to start filling out your future self map is to fill out personality tests. But answer these questions based on how you want to respond, not based on how you'd respond now. I'm always prepared. Most of the time, I feel self-assured. Use descriptive words on your future self map, like fascinating or playful. Creating a future self map on paper is a starting point, but burning that into your brain, seeing what it actually looks like in practice is the next step. Reach a point where you are like the advanced musicians. You have a detailed mental representation of who you want to become. Practice being your best self. No one would ever expect an unexperienced writer to write a love story like Jane Austen. That takes a lot of practice. No one expects someone who's never written a song to write songs like Doja Cat. That takes practice. No one expects someone who's never set a boundary to set boundaries like Nedra Tawwab. That takes practice. For anything to come easily to you, you need practice. And people don't become great by practicing once in a while. They become great by practicing regularly. So a guy called Michael Gervais is a psychologist for very important athletes. He coached the guy who jumped from the Earth's stratosphere for Red Bull. The guy who he was coaching, whose name was Felix, developed this intense claustrophobia when it came to being inside of a spacesuit, which is obviously very bad when you're jumping from the Earth's stratosphere. So when he started coaching Felix, he kicked off by allowing Felix to be in a spacesuit, but in his imagination. And as they did this mental rehearsal, he helped Felix to manage his breath, manage his feelings, manage his thoughts to the point where his heart rate actually got down. They kept on doing this mental rehearsal alongside actual exposure therapy, and they got to a point where obviously he was sweet. He jumped from the Earth's stratosphere. Practicing hard things in your imagination is the ideal place to start. If you want to set boundaries but you are a known people pleaser, mentally rehearse setting those boundaries first. You can self-coach your way through it. You can shower yourself with all the self-compassion in the world, and you're in such a safe space when you are mentally rehearsing. And when you repeat a behavior enough, even if it's just in your mind, it's going to become easier for you to do. If you liked this video, you might like my video titled "Discipline Doesn't Work, Here's What Does." I'm gonna have that video linked on the screen as well as down below. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you soon.